So, imagine yourself a young child and you don't know your parents. You've grown up in an orphanage and you finally feel like you found a place where you can be safe after going through so much in your life. But when you get there, it's not exactly what it turns out to be. And so it turns into was this a way for her to get away from the SAing and the things like that happened to her? Or was she actually possessed? We're going to be talking today about the possession of some nuns that ended up pointing the finger at a couple of priests. Yeah. And then some bad things happened. So we're going to talk about that today. And if you're new here to my channel, my name is Brandy. And I bring really old witch dark history stories back to life by telling the story. At the same time, I put some makeup on my face. But yeah, that's what we do here. So if that sounds awesome to you, please hit that subscribe button. I'm really trying to hit 500 followers. I'm not trying to be a star or nothing. I'm just trying to, get, a little something. But anyways, let's go ahead and get this party started. So we are in France and it is 1647, all right? And there's a young girl that has been an orphan ever since she was born. And her name is Madeleine Bavent, okay? And like I say, she was an orphan and she was born in 1607, so we're kind of going far back in time now. You got to remember what it's like to be an orphan during that kind of time, okay? I don't know if she was moved around a lot or things like that, but I do know that she grew up in an orphanage. But then, when Madeleine got old enough, she ends up going to a convent. But there's a few things that happened between here and then that kind of shape why she did what she did, if it's fake or maybe you guys will think it's true. That's also another thing to consider, because this is about demonic possession and witchcraft. So Madeleine becomes a linen apprentice, like a linen worker apprentice, okay, at 12 years old. So she wants to learn a trade, which is, that's great, especially for somebody that doesn't have any parents, doesn't have anybody to learn anything from. So she goes to work at this linen factory, and it's her and these three other, I guess you could say children probably, but we know that Madeleine is a child at this age. Like I say, she's 12 when she goes in, but it's when she's 14 years old. The owner of the linen place starts drugging the kids, these 4 kids, which included Madeleine, with belladonna, which and of course in large doses it can kill you, but also it really disorients you and like makes you really, really drowsy and sleepy. So the owner of the linen shop would kind of make these kids, because they're drowsy, they're out of it, they don't know what's going on. They would make them think that he was like the devil and all this other crazy stuff. But in actuality, what he was doing was SAing the children. And when this happened, like I say, she was 14 years old. And so it's not too long, about 4 years after this. I don't know how long it goes on. I don't know if she stays there, unfortunately. There's not a whole lot about this case, but it does get crazy. But when she turns 18, she decides she's going to go to a convent. And I feel like she does this because she thinks that this is safe. She thinks it's a safe place for her to go, okay? Because it's church, right? Yeah, it's church. And so you think you're at church and you're going to be fine and you're going to be safe. Well, turns out when she gets to this convent, which is called the Hospitallary Convent, the head dude there is an Adamite. And I didn't know what that was, so I had to, I kind of gathered because I'm, but also, obviously it had something to do with nudity, but I had to look up the rest of it too. Now this guy there, Father David, yes, good old Father David. He was an Adamite. And basically what that is obviously they like to be in the unsinful nature of being naked. Yes, of course it includes nakedness. And it's like they feel like they're a descendant of Adam, you know? And most of the time it was like clerics of sections of the church that would be Adamites. So can you imagine going to a convent, okay, thinking you're going there and you're gonna become a nun, and this priest there thinks that it is a-okay for everybody to walk around naked. So that's probably exactly what he's doing. And imagine all the things that has happened to her up to this point in her life. She probably don't want to see no naked man walking around. Point blank period. Yeah. If it was me, I wouldn't want to see no man walking around naked like that either, especially if I went to a convent to become a nun, because I had been SA'd for like 4 years at my previous job just trying to learn a craft. You know what I mean? I mean, that's just ridiculous. And so Father David was his name, and he was adamant that everybody was supposed to be just like him, an Adamite. And she was not down. Like I say, she was not down with this whatsoever, and she told him so. She said, quote unquote, to submit to this strange way of living for her was not the way to go. And so her superiors looked down on her for it. And so what happens? They put her in like the loneliest job as a nun that you could possibly get. She's living away from the convent. She's staying at this place where there's a box there, and that's how they get communication from the outside world. And so there's always a nun, I guess, at this box that makes sure that when the town sends messages that the convent needs to know, then the nun will send the messages to the convent. If you see what I'm saying? So they kind of kept her separate, all right? But it's not too long that Father David passes away. So once Father David dies, of course, they send somebody in his place, and his name is Mathurian Picard, okay? Now this Picard guy decides to take Madeline off of her duty of being away from everybody and makes her the sacristan of the church, which is like the person that goes in to prepare the chapel or the room or whatever before whatever ritual or whatever ceremony that they're going to have. She was like in charge of that. But he also taught her about magic potions, okay, and was very kind of lewd and was, rubbing up on her, basically, is what I'm saying. He was hitting on her. This is a priest hitting on a nun. And that made her uncomfortable, of course. And so he was doing all this weird stuff, and it's even said that he impregnated her. But we don't hear anything about the baby. There's no information on that, if that happened or not. That may be alleged, I'm not sure. But it is said that, this guy, Picard, got her pregnant. Now, in 1625, Madeline becomes Sister Madeline. I guess it took a little bit, and she was 18 years old. And then she began claiming that she was being possessed by the now deceased Picard. Evidently he didn't last that long, just like Father David. I feel like there's a little something else behind that we're just not ever gonna know, but hey, it is what it is. She said she was being possessed by the now passed Picard guy, and then this other guy she's being possessed who's still alive, Father Thomas Boulet, okay, and he was like the vicar of Louviers, okay? That's the name of this place in France. It's the Louviers. And so she confesses, she starts saying what these two dudes are doing. She's like, they're possessing me. They are taking me to Sabbats. There's the word, Sabbats. And they are making me get married to the devil. I had relations with the devil on an altar while warning, this is about a kid, while strangling and consuming babies. And then 2 guys were sacrificed while she was having relations with the devil, and like they were disemboweled, like over the altar. Like she went wild, she wilded out when she told this story. But in a way, I don't blame her. I feel like she might, I mean, I don't know. It's going to be up to you if you feel like she's possessed or not. I don't know. Because 18 nuns end up coming out and they're like, hey, same thing happened to me. 18 freaking nuns are like, the same thing happened to me. So the church launches an investigation into what Madeline is saying. Because this is, I'm imagining the Catholic Church, and they don't really ignore, you know, demonic possessions, especially when you're saying that another priest is doing it, okay? So they start looking into things, and they find out some stuff. Like I say, 18 nuns come up, and they're like, oh yeah, they've been doing the same thing to us. Yep, sure have. They've been taking us to go see the devil, and his name is Dagon. Yeah, this devil has a certain name, and they did the Sabbaths and all this other stuff. But they also started having like contortions, unnatural body movements. They were speaking in tongues. They would say obscene insults and blasphemy. It was just top notch. These nuns were really putting on the show. So these nuns, like I say, were saying that Picard was coming from the grave and bewitching them and taking them to see the devil and all this other kind of madness. And when the investigation starts going, I said they found 18 nuns that say this was going on. Okay. Now, before we get to the exorcism part, which is buck wild crazy, let me tell you what the signs of possession were back then. Okay, they could be different. I imagine they're a lot different now. But one was to think you're possessed, which is actually, I think that is still one now, is to think you're possessed. I'm not really sure, but I'm almost positive. To lead a wicked life, to live outside of the rule of society, which, I mean, some of us do that now. I mean, you know, but not like to the extreme. Persistently ill, heavy sleep, you start throwing up stuff, like weird stuff, like nails and pins and like creepy stuff, you know. You yell obscenities and blasphemies, and you're troubled by spirits, and you're tired of living was one of them, which I thought that was kind of weird. I was like, okay. The person's uncontrollable. They sound like an animal. They make animal-like sounds and noises and stuff like that. They have a fear of any kind of religious relics. Yeah. They curse in their prayers. And they have abnormal strength and like this weird sexual behavior. Like they do not care. And you'll see why. So now that you guys know what the possession is, basically, okay, they started doing exorcisms on the nuns. Okay, and I know what you're thinking. You're probably thinking, oh, they're going to do this in the nunnery, or the nunnery, the convent. They're going to do this in the convent, right? And it's going to be, you know, like a bunch of priests, one-on-one with a bunch of nuns, you know. But no. They decide to make a public, very much so public spectacle, okay? Like very much so. And it's not a good thing because it starts to rub off on the crowd. That's one thing. If even one of them were possessed, it's a possibility that spirit released can go into somebody in the crowd. That's why you don't have a lot of people in the room, especially if their faith isn't strong. At least that's what I've been told. And so they did this outside. They exorcised the demons from these nuns outside in the public view. And of course, all the inquisitors were there, and they were asking questions and all this other stuff to every single person that was there. Like, you know, what do you know? What has happened? And you know what they're doing at the same time they're doing these exorcisms? They are torturing Father Thomas. Yes, they are. They are torturing that man, trying to get him to confess, because that's what they do. Like I say, this is what, starting to turn to a slight witch trial. You feel me? You know? Yeah. And so you got Thomas over there. He's getting he's getting tortured. I'm only laughing because it's uncomfortable as crap to talk about all this. So it's a whole spectacle. They have all the nuns out there trying to do exorcisms on nuns who are screaming obscenities. They're pulling up their habits, trying to entice people. They were really, they were really like contorting themselves and yelling out in pain. And of course, all of this is in public. Old Thomas is getting tortured. And so this hysteria hits the public because they're like freaked out by all this that they're seeing. They're like, these nuns, if they can be possessed, what if we can be too? That's what, see what I'm saying? So it became a whole entire spectacle. Unfortunately, it brings us to where they confess to more. Yes, during their exorcisms, they start talking about more stuff. Okay, so the nuns started saying that Satan came in the form of the two priests, the one that was passed away, okay, and the one that was still alive and being tortured, that evidently the two combined and became Satan, okay, and that the devil would appear as an angel to the nuns and then sit down and have a theological conversation with them about the Bible. And so much so that it had them questioning their own beliefs. Okay? And then they said that he was leading them down the road to heresy and all this other crazy stuff. The devil said that he was a messenger. And they believed that this was like some kind of dogma experience, that these nuns were having. And so what ends up happening is they have a trial, okay? They end up putting old dude on trial because you got 18 nuns and Madeline talking about how they were possessed by these two specific guys. Although I feel like that these two guys did so many bad things when they were within the convent, to the nuns, that maybe this is their way of getting back at them, whatnot, even though one of them's already dead. He's already got his karma, obviously, pretty early in life. So, but just that's the story, you know what I mean? We got 18 nuns that are possessed, and they say all these things, and they say that they would raise their habits for the devil and all this other kind of crazy stuff. Even one of the nuns that was being supposedly exorcised got up and ran so fast that when somebody caught her arm, instead of, when you're running and somebody catches your arm but your body keeps going forward because of the momentum, they would stop short. Even running super fast. It was all kinds of weirdness that was going on. So amidst the hysteria that they caused by having a public freaking exorcism, they end up having a trial, and it would happen for Father Thomas, and they're still going to try the passed away Picard. Okay, this is really weird. And what kind of sealed their fate was this girl named Sister Barbara St. Michael. And she said that she was possessed by a demon named Anticitif. Yeah, that kind of put the nail in their coffins then when she testified to that, I guess at their little place. So what happens? What happens to these two guys? Well, the guy that's been tortured already, okay, he's sentenced to die, obviously. And the other guy, this is so strange, but the other guy who's already passed away, right? They dig his body up just so they can burn it. Yeah, they did that. They dug up a priest and burnt his body, okay? And then, of course, Father Thomas got set on fire, alive. Yeah. Like, this story, like, Parliament was like straight up, they're all guilty, all these things. But what's the saddest thing is what happens to Madeline. You're probably like, what happened to Madeline? What's happening to her? She gets sentenced to life in a prison cell underneath the church. I want to know, make that make sense. How did she get that? You know, when supposedly all these things were happening to her, it was out of her control. You know, they were taking control of her, basically, is what she's saying. But, loud truck, gotta love it. But at the same time, you know, I don't know. So, poor Sister Madeline, she's been put through it, you know? And if they would have even considered her life before she got to the convent, but I think you're supposed to put all that behind you. But, you know, I feel like she went there for safety. She went there because it was a safe place. Or so she thought, you know? A lot of people think churches are a safe place. And unfortunately, some of them are wrong, you know? But that's just the way it is. But for her to be an orphan, and then for her to go, oh my God, these trucks are killing me today. For her to be an orphan and to go through all this is, I feel like this happened because she got tired of men having their way with her whenever they wanted to, just because she didn't have stature, she didn't have education, you know, she didn't have all these things. So they just figured they could treat her like crap, which is the ultimate sin in all this, in my opinion. So to lock her up for it makes no sense to me. None. Alright. So, that's the story of the Louviers possessions. But we got to really think about why she said what she said. You know, was it real? Were the nuns actually possessed? You know? How can they all say the same thing? But maybe, you know, I don't know how big this convent is, but I know maybe the nuns all just kind of got together and said this because when Madeline got there, you know, she realized what was going on. And the other nuns probably didn't like it either. The weird sexual advances on them and teaching them magic potions, you know, this kind of went against what they believed in. So, yeah, I mean, you gotta think of it like that. But poor Madeline has been bullied throughout her lifetime by people that were either supposed to help her and be there for her, or people that were supposed to be teaching her something or helping her in some way. She never got that from anybody. And so I feel like she took control by saying, these two men, yeah, they possessed me. They did, you know. Just so that she can have some kind of voice. Because back then you can't just say, this priest is doing this and people are going to believe you. This is not how it is. And so she created her own way of basically putting in a sexual harassment note. But only she did it in the craziest way possible, but it was effective. I mean, the guy did get burned alive, and then they dug up old dude's body and then burned that. You can't get any more disrespectful than that. I'm just saying, like. So that's the story of the Louviers possessions, and I hope you guys enjoyed it today. It was very, very interesting that, I mean, to me, a bunch of nuns getting possessed and calling out priests as witches, like, that's screwing my name, so I had to do it. But anyways, I appreciate you guys being here. Soon we're going to be going on some road trips and stuff like that and seeing some beautiful things, and I'm really excited for that. So, but if you liked today's episode, please feel free to subscribe as I'm trying to get to 500. Anyways, if nobody's told you guys today, I love you And I hope you have a glorious week.